The ex who never apologized, narcissist. The friend who made everything about herself, narcissist. The boss who took credit for your work, narcissist. The parent who never really listened to you, narcissist. The person who left without any explanation, narcissist. But then, the therapist who challenged your thinking, narcissist. The friend who set a boundary, narcissist. The person who simply told you the truth, narcissist. At some point, the list stopped being about people who hurt you. It started including people who were simply honest with you. And that's where the real problem begins. Because today, you're going to find out why your brain keeps labeling people this way, what's actually behind it, and how a word that once gave you clarity may actually be keeping you stuck. You'll also find out what a real narcissist actually looks like, and why most people get it completely wrong. Stay with me until the end. So what is the real psychology behind this? Think about the moments you went through a breakup. Not the breakup itself, the weeks after. Lying awake, running the same questions. Did they ever actually love me? Was I the problem? Why did they do that? And no matter how many times you went over it, no answer came. Then one day, a video appeared. Someone explaining narcissism. And within minutes, everything started fitting together. The confusion, the cycles, the way you always ended up apologizing. Oh, they were a narcissist. And for the first time in months, your brain relaxed. Not because you had proof, not because a therapist confirmed it, because the uncertainty finally had a name. And that feeling, that relief, is the first reason this word spreads so fast. The brain doesn't just want the truth, it wants the confusion to stop. And sometimes narcissist does that job, whether it's accurate or not. But here's what happens next, and this part almost nobody notices. Once that label is in place, your brain stops investigating. It starts proving. Say you've decided your boss is a narcissist. Now, every time they talk about their achievements, you notice it, file it away. But when they give credit to the team, those moments don't register. Not because they didn't happen, because your brain isn't looking for evidence anymore. It already has its answer. And then there's the layer that hits closest. If someone hurt you before, really hurt you, manipulated you, used you, broke your trust, your brain didn't just process that as a memory, it filed it as a warning. So now when someone new takes too long to reply, your brain doesn't think they're probably just busy. It says, this feels exactly like before, and it moves to protect you before it even checks if the threat is real. The line between protection and paranoia is thinner than most people realize. And the last piece, your friend forgets your birthday. There are 100 possible explanations. Stressed, something hard at home, just careless that week. But the mind often skips past all of that and goes straight to character. What a narcissist. They only think about themselves. One moment, one behavior, entire personality decided. TikTok did the rest. 3 weeks of content later, everyone had become one. And nobody in those videos mentioned that selfish people exist, immature people exist, insecure people exist, avoidant people exist, and none of them are the same thing. The word got so wide, it stopped meaning anything specific, which means the people on your list who actually hurt you might be getting the exact same label as people who were just having a hard time. And that difference matters more than you think. So now you know why the word spreads. But here is the question nobody asks. What does a real one actually look like? Because I promise, it is nothing like what you have been reading online. Who is actually a narcissist? Here is the moment that tells you everything. You brought something up, something that hurt you, and by the end of that conversation, you were the one apologizing. You don't even know how it happened. You came in with a valid point. You walked away seeing yourself as the problem. That is not a communication issue. That is not just being defensive. Their brain didn't hear, you hurt me. Their brain heard, you are bad. And everything that happened after was just damage control. Now comes the sign that's even harder to spot. Think about someone who was amazing when you were struggling. They were there, they listened, they said all the right things. But the moment life started going well for you, something changed. You got the promotion, they went quiet. You were happy, they found something wrong. You were confident, they introduced just enough doubt to make you question yourself again. Not through some big dramatic action, through a comment, a tone, a look. Must be nice. I just hope you know what you're getting into. This is the sign almost nobody talks about. This is a person whose self-worth only works when you need them. The moment you don't, they feel empty. And without even realizing it, they find a way to make you feel like you need them again. And then there's the transactional pattern. You've probably felt this before. The person who calls when they need to process something, who texts when they need advice, who shows up when they need support. And you give it, every time. But the one time you called when you were falling apart, They listened for 4 minutes and then spent the next 20 talking about their own problems. And when the call ended, you felt more alone than before you dialed. This isn't a bad friend having a bad day. This is a relationship that only flows in one direction. But before I leave you with that, there is something just as important. Because the word has been used so loosely that some people on your list never deserve to be there at all. Who is not a narcissist? The person who snapped at you last Tuesday after 3 weeks of sleep deprivation and the stress of a dying parent, and then called the next day to apologize. Not a narcissist. A person under pressure who still came back. The friend who said, "I can't be your emotional support right now because I'm not okay myself," and said it without cruelty. Not a narcissist. A person with boundaries. The colleague who's confident, direct, takes up space, but when you succeed, genuinely says, "You really deserved that," and means it. Not a narcissist. A person whose self-worth doesn't depend on your failure. And this is the real difference. Anyone can have a bad day. Anyone can be selfish once. Anyone can say the wrong thing and then need time to come back from it. What separates a narcissistic pattern from normal human difficulty is not the behavior itself, it's what happens after. Does anything change? Does accountability ever actually land? Can they hold your success without feeling threatened by it? If the answer, across months, across years, across every relationship they have ever had, is no, then this isn't a bad day. It's a structure. Every difficult person has bad moments. A narcissist has a pattern. And the difference between those two things is the difference between someone who can change and someone whose pattern never does. Take a second with this, not to defend anyone who hurt you, not to minimize what happened, just to be precise about it. Some of the people on your list, the ones who hurt you, the ones who confused you, the ones who made you feel like you were losing your mind, some of them were genuinely harmful. And one of them, maybe, actually fits what I just described. But the others, they were people who were selfish sometimes, emotionally unavailable, dealing with their own damage in ways that spilled onto you, who hurt you, not because they couldn't feel, but because they were limited, unaware, afraid, stuck, human. And here is why that distinction matters. Not for them, for you. Because if everyone who hurt you is a narcissist, then the only explanation for your pain is that you keep attracting broken people. But if some of them were just human, then there is a different question. Not what is wrong with them, what kept you there, what made that feel familiar, what you were looking for, in people who were never going to be able to give it. That question is harder than the label, but it is the only one that actually leads somewhere. The answer to that question is not about who they were. It is about something that happened to you, long before any of them arrived. That is the only explanation that actually changes anything. Who was the first person you ever called a narcissist? Not to judge the answer, just who was it? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.